everybody. I wanted to go through lesson 3.2. So lesson 3.2 has two parts to it, so it's 2 different days. So we are looking at the first part, the cost of driving, part 1. It's on page 321 of your textbook. All right, so if you look at the problem situation, we're talking about a situation where we're looking at whether it's going to be cheaper to rent a car or to use your own car for some work expenses. So let's look and see what it says here. Jenna's job requires her to travel. She owns a 2006 Toyota 4Runner, but she also has the option to rent a car for her travel. In either case, her employer will reimburse her for the mileage using the rate set by the Internal Revenue Service. In 2014, this rate was set at 56 cents per mile. Over the next 2 lessons, you will explore the question of whether it would be better for Jenna to drive her own car or to rent a car. Okay, so the first 2 questions there at the bottom of that page, you can just pause the video for a minute and just take a few minutes to think about those, what factors would affect the cost of either option there. Okay, so then go ahead, once you're done with that and you've come back to the video, go ahead and look at the next page. And on page 322 there at the top, we're talking about gas mileage. So it says most of Jenna's travel will take place on the highway. For one trip, she drives 150 miles, and the price of gas is $3.50 a gallon. Her 4Runner gets 22 miles to the gallon. If Jenna rents a car, she can request a small fuel-efficient model such as the Hyundai Elantra, which gets 40 miles to the gallon. So A just asks to use your estimation skills to compare the cost of gas. Which one is going to cost more and why? So again, just take a minute, pause the video, and just think about which of those is going to cost more and why, using her own car or using the rental car in terms of gas. Okay, so hopefully you took a minute to think about it, and you can see that her car gets about half the gas mileage of the rental. The rental is almost double the gas mileage. So we're going to spend a lot more on gas for her car than for the rental. Right? Almost double. So let's calculate that. So if we are using her car, which is the 4Runner, and we're going to think about using our dimensional analysis for this, okay? There are different ways to do it. It's not the only way, but we're going to be practicing with that. And we'll also see that the nice thing about setting it up in dimensional analysis is then we have a setup where as things change, and we'll see this more in the second part of this lesson, but as one or another little part changes, we don't have to redo the whole thing. We can just pull out the part that changes, put in the new amounts. Kind of like having a formula in a way. Okay, so her 4Runner gets 22 miles to the gallon. Just going to put this over here. Okay, and we know that gas is $3.50 per gallon. And she is driving 150 miles in this scenario. All right, so let's figure out what the cost of gas is. We know that we want an answer that's in dollars. Cost. Okay. So we want to start with something over here that's going to have dollars in the numerator. And if we look at our information, we can see that that piece of information would be $3.50 for 1 gallon. Now we don't want gallons in our answer, we just want dollars. So we want something here in the next conversion factor that's going to have gallons in the top. So if we look at our information that we're given, the way I have it written here, it might not jump right out at you, but this, right, means miles per gallon. Or in other words, we get 22 miles for every 1 gallon of gas. So I can write this 2 different ways. I could say we get 22 miles for 1 gallon, or I could say I use 1 gallon of gas every 22 miles. It means the same thing, right? Saying 1 week has 7 days, or there are 7 days in a week. It means exactly the same thing. So I can choose which version of this conversion factor to use based on how I want my units. And I know I want my units of gallons in the top, so I'm going to write it this way. So this setup tells me that my units of gallons are going to cancel out. Okay, now I have dollars in the top in the numerator and miles in the denominator. I don't want miles in my answer, so I want something here that's going to cancel out my miles. Well, I know that her trip is 150 miles. And it's not 150 miles per anything, so we're just going to put it over 1. But again, that cancels out my units. And what I have left now is just dollars, which is exactly what I want in my answer. If you were doing this without dimensional analysis, you probably would have taken the trip of 150 miles, divided by 22. See how many groups of 22 there are in there? Every group of 22 miles costs us $3.50. So it'd be another way to do it. Again, I would like you to work with dimensional analysis now to get used to it. So now we're going to multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. So when we multiply across the top, we will get 350 times 150 is 525. And on the bottom we have 22. So this is a number, right? This is how many dollars we're spending on gas. It kind of doesn't mean a lot to us in that form. A little hard to wrap our heads around. But when we divide and round to the nearest penny, we're going to get $23.86. So that's how much the gas is going to cost if she takes her own 4Runner on this trip. Okay, let's see about the Hyundai Elantra. So the Hyundai Elantra has the same information in some parts here. Oops, hope I spell it right. We're still going on the same trip, so it's 150 miles. Gas is still going to cost $3.50 a gallon. The difference here is that the Elantra is much more fuel efficient, so we get 40 miles per gallon. Okay, so we're going to do the same idea. We want to know an answer in dollars. We want to start out with something with dollars in the numerator. Again, we're going to start out with $3.50 per gallon. We don't want gallons in our answer, so we're going to multiply by something that has gallons on top. So 1 gallon this time is 40 miles. And so that makes our gallons cancel out. And then we want something that is going to cancel out the miles here. We know that her trip is still 150 miles. Oops. So my miles are going to cancel out just like before. I multiply across the top. I'm multiplying the same numbers that I did last time, so I'm still going to get 525. But this time I'm going to get 40 on the bottom. And when I divide that round to the nearest penny, I'm going to get $13.13. So if your estimate before, if you remember when we were talking about this in part A, we know that the 4Runner was going to cost us a lot more in gas because we have to get gas more often. We can only go 22 miles on a gallon of gas. Here we can go 40, so almost twice as much. And you can see that this is almost twice as much. Twice as much here would be 26. It's almost double. All right, so as I said, the nice thing about dimensional analysis also is that if you have a problem set up and you notice that another problem you're looking at is very similar, then you can just kind of take out what changes. So we knew that here the gas is the same, if the trip is the same, this is the part that changes. Let's say I had a third option. Let's say she could borrow her mother's car, which gets 37 miles to the gallon, and we wanted to know how much that was going to cost for gas. We can see now that we would leave all this stuff the same. The only thing we would change is this mileage. So it's nice to be able to pop it in and out without having to start over every single time. Okay, so let's go ahead then and look at the next problem. So the next two problems, number 4 and 5, are going to be where we figure out the cost of driving for a rental car first in number 4 and for her own car in number 5. Not just the gas, but everything. And please notice that this is a different trip slightly, okay? It's a slightly different trip. Same cars, same price of gas, but the length of the trip is different. All right, so what I want you to do first is to read through number 4. And I want you to think about what 3 things are going to contribute to the total cost for her renting a car. So the cost of the rental is going to be made up of 3 parts that we have to add together in the end. Okay, so I want you to take a few minutes to read through that and just think about, not numbers here, just words of what things am I going to have to pay for that are going to be the cost of that rental in the end. Okay, I'm going to stop this video just so it doesn't get too long. I'll start another one in just a minute, and that will be where we go through number 4 and number 5.